The photographic story of the Great New York to Paris Auto Race, 1908.
In the summer of 1907, Paris newspaper Le Matin and the New York Times announced the Great Race, New York to Paris by automobile. The prize, a 1,400-pound trophy, and proving that it could be done. The race commenced in Times Square on February 12, 1908. 6 cars representing 4 nations were at the starting line for what would become a 169-day ordeal, making it, in terms of time taken, still the longest motorsport event ever held. Germany, France, Italy, and the United States participated, with the Protus representing Germany, a Zoost representing Italy, 3 cars, de Dion Bowden, Motoblock, and César representing France, and a Thomas Flyer representing the United States. Legend has it that the Thomas Flyer entered the race at the insistence of President Theodore Roosevelt, who hated the prospect of European automobiles crossing the country unchallenged by Americans. Better established companies, such as Buffalo's Pierce Arrow, declined to enter. But the Thomas Automobile Company, also from Buffalo, pulled one of its production models out of its factory at the last minute and entered the race. Buffalo's own George Schuster was the driver and chief mechanic. The proposed route was across the United States, through areas with very few improved roads, and then north to Alaska, by boat, and then across the, hopefully frozen Bering Strait into Siberia. Then across Siberia to Moscow and then on to Paris. The Thomas Flyer reached San Francisco in 41 days, 8 hours, and 15 minutes, the first ever crossing of the United States by a car in winter. The car was then shipped up to Seattle and on to Valdez, Alaska. As the Americans turned north, the line of followers stretched from California to Iowa. The Thomas crew found impossible conditions in Alaska and returned to Seattle. The race was rerouted across the Pacific by steamer to Japan, where the Americans made their way across to the Sea of Japan. Then it was on to Vladivostok, Siberia, by ship to begin crossing the continents of Asia and Europe. Only 3 of the competitors made it past Vladivostok: the Protus, Germany; the Zoost, Italian; and the Flyer, American. The wet plains of Siberia and Manchuria during the spring thaw made progress difficult. At several points, forward movement was often measured in feet rather than miles per hour. Eventually, the roads improved as Europe approached, and the Thomas arrived in Paris on July 30, 1908, to win, having covered approximate 16,700 kilometers. The Germans, driven by Hans Koppen, arrived in Paris 4 days earlier but had been penalized a total of 30 days for not going to Japan and for shipping the Protus part of the way by railcar. That gave the win to the Americans, with George Schuster, the only American to go the full distance from New York to Paris, by 26 days, still the largest winning margin in any motorsport event ever. The Italians arrived later in September 1908. The significance of the event extended far beyond the race itself. It established the reliability of the automobile as a dependable means of transportation. Also, it led to the call for improved roads to be constructed in many parts of the world.
If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel.